In this video, I'm going to discuss everything you need to look for in a lease if you actually decide to take the path of leasing a home to do your residential assisted living business out of. So if you're interested, make sure to stick around. What's going on, everyone? I hope you're all doing well. If you're new here, welcome to the channel. To all my reoccurring viewers, thank you so much for all the love and support that each and every single one of you have shown this channel. I greatly appreciate it. If you have not yet, feel free to go check out the God Made podcast on all streaming platforms, and feel free to go check out Legion Assisted Living Academy and Legion Assisted Living Advisors in the links down below. And if you're interested in passively investing in residential assisted living, feel free to shoot me an email in the description down below. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the topic of this video. Now, I've been talking about a lot when it comes to leasing a home to do your residential assisted living home business out of, due to the fact that it doesn't require nearly as much capital, especially if you're not able to have that type of capital accessible to yourself to be able to purchase a home to start your residential assisted living. And in most cases, if you're going to be leasing a home to do your residential assisted living business out of, in most cases, if your landlord knows what they're doing, they will actually have the home already zoned and potentially licensed for you to be able to run your business out of. Now, when I actually started my first care home, I actually leased the property, right? I'm renting the property and it was already zoned and licensed, and all I had to redo is my certificate of occupancy under my entity name, and then also redo the licensing application, which didn't take me very long to do because the property was already zoned and previously licensed. And so it was just a matter of changing everything over to my new entity name. Now, I highly recommend that a lot of people that are looking to get into this business, if you don't have all the capital in the world to go and purchase a property, which most of you probably don't, leasing is most likely going to be the better option for you. And there are a lot of different benefits and cons to leasing, but I'm going to talk more about what to look for in a lease and what to do when it comes to leasing your property. Now, keep in mind, this is not any type of legal advice, and I highly recommend that you go and seek an attorney to be able to go through your lease for you and to be able to actually do that for you. Now, that is the first thing that I recommend. That is probably step number one, right? Once you find the right property to actually lease, you're going to want to go ahead and make sure that it's actually zoned and licensed, or potentially able to get licensed, depending on the amount of beds that you want to get licensed. Once you confirm that, you then want to make sure that you talk to the landlord. If the landlord is specifically doing that, where they're purchasing properties, getting them zoned and licensed to be able to lease out to operators like myself and yourself, they will have things in place, right? They'll most likely have a commercial lease in place if they know what they're doing, right? Through my syndication, that's what we do. We actually do commercial leases. And so with that, you want to make sure when you do a commercial lease that you have your attorney go over it, right? Make sure that you have someone looking over that lease for you and that you understand exactly what's in that lease, how much it's going to cost you per month. Is there going to be some type of tier system, right? Maybe the first month you pay half of the lease due to the fact that maybe your home is vacant. If not, and you have some residents, that way it can give you some time to actually fill your beds and be able to pay that full amount in the lease that you actually are going to be paying. So make sure you get legal representation for your lease and make sure that you understand everything that's in that lease. Also, make sure that you understand what you're going to be responsible for when it comes to repairs. What types of repairs? Are you going to be responsible for the landscaping? Are you going to be responsible for things that cost over $500 or less than $500? Are you responsible for any big ticket items, right? HVAC, water boiler, roof, anything of that nature are you going to be responsible for? So you want to make sure that that is all stated in the lease. You don't want to sign that lease and then you end up being on the hook for any major repairs that happen in the home. Are you also responsible for appliances? What's going to be coming inside the home prior to you actually operating your business, right? Is there going to be any type of fixtures, furniture, equipment in the home already that is going to be provided by the landlord? Are you responsible for those furniture or fixtures, right? If anything breaks, are you responsible to replace it? Are you going to have to, is there any TVs, anything of that nature, refrigerators, dishwasher, any dryer, washer potentially? Is that something that you're going to be responsible for? If it's being provided by the landlord, in most cases you'll probably have to be responsible for those appliances and pay for any of those repairs or damages done to those appliances. Oftentimes you can kind of negotiate that out of the lease, right? And you can purchase your own appliances and be responsible for just the appliances that you purchased, right? You don't want to be fixing someone else's stuff. Maybe if they're letting you actually use it and it's part of the lease, maybe then it's worth actually just repairing it when it does come to time for it to get repaired. Oftentimes with appliances, I'd be very cautious about that, because with appliances, oftentimes if they do break, it pretty much costs you the same to go buy a brand new one than to have to do the repair. So just keep that in mind when you're actually leasing the property. Another thing that you want to keep in mind when it comes to leasing the property is the term that you actually sign. How long are you signing that lease for? Is it a 3, 4, 5-year term? And if so, what does that consist of? How much will your rent be going up every year? Which in most cases, it will go up by 3 to 5% every year. So keep that in mind, know what to expect when it comes to signing that lease and the term that you're actually agreeing to. Because if you're not, and you end up signing a 3-year lease and you end up not being able to make ends meet, what's going to happen then? Are you able to potentially pay the remaining of the lease and get out of it? How does that all work, right? You want to ask these types of questions when it comes to your commercial lease. Oftentimes, I recommend to landlords that they do a commercial lease and not a residential lease. They're two completely different things, and there's a lot more that goes into a commercial lease versus a residential lease. Even though it is a residential property, a lot of people think that you should do a residential lease, but that's not the case. It's smarter to go with a commercial lease. Another thing that you want to keep in mind is that you want to make sure that you understand what is going on when it comes to licensing and zoning, right? Licensing is going to require, especially if you are leasing the property, licensing is going to require that you give a proof of that lease signed and that you are able to actually run a residential assisted living home out of it. So always make sure in the lease that the landlord states that they are giving you approval or are allowing you to actually run a residential assisted living business out of that property. If that's not in there, you're most likely going to be liable for anything that happens in that property, and you're most likely not going to be able to get licensed. But like I said, you want to make sure that you find a landlord who is renting these properties out specifically for residential assisted living. If there are properties that have potential, right, they meet the requirements and the criteria of what you're looking for as far as square footage, rooms, bathrooms, and it isn't licensed or zoned and the landlord has no idea, I will make a separate topic on that. I'll make a separate video on that topic, because if there is a potential property that could be used as a residential assisted living and it's for lease, but it's not zoned or licensed, and you've called zoning and they've approved it and you know that you can get it licensed, there may be potential there to be able to actually speak to the landlord and give them the pros and cons of you actually running a residential assisted living out of that property and how that can benefit the landlord. So I will make a video about that. But regardless, those are the top things that I highly recommend when it comes to leasing out a property, right? Making sure that you have legal representation to look over your commercial lease. Make sure you understand it, and then also make sure that you know what's going to be involved as far as repairs goes on that property, what you're going to be required to do. And then also you want to make sure if there's going to be any types of fixtures, furniture, and equipment, that you know what you're responsible for when it comes to those items, and that you're not paying for any of the big ticket items. Make sure you negotiate that with the landlord, and then make sure that they are stating that you're going to be using that property for residential assisted living. So with that being said, hopefully this video informed you guys, that you guys enjoyed it, Feel free to hit the like button if you guys did. If you have not yet, please subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. Go watch all these other videos up here, and I will talk to you all in the next video. God bless.